Okay, now it's time to open up the floor for questions from you. If you want to raise a question to any of the panelists in particular, then indicate so, and also please introduce yourself when you take the floor. Who would like to raise a question or comment? Marie, oh.
Hi, Marie Parent from IFPRI. I had a question for Catherine. So I think I was understanding from what you were saying that that a lot of the food is wasted at the production site. And so I think you were suggesting that it might make sense to locate the ColdHubs there. But I was thinking maybe the issue might have to do with the middlemen and the market value chain having a bit more leverage. And so that ends up with the producers having to waste all the production at the site, but the issue isn't necessarily the location of the ColdHub. So I was wondering if you could explain that a bit more. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Really, really interesting presentation. A couple of things. One, the solar powered part of it, but I'm wondering how these systems store the power. I mean, you're going to need power at night for this thing, and that's going to affect the cost. And so I'm wondering how the cost looks relative to something driven by mains power, if you have or had mains power. I know the cost of solar has been really falling, but is it there yet? And then one other thing, say a supermarket, they've got a lot of diversity in the stuff they're storing, and that's going to let them get better utilization. You've got a seasonality issue here that's going to make it hard to utilize. Are there paths forward that let you see ways of raising the diversity of what you're storing and the utilization of the capacity?
Hi, Joyce Friedenberg from USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service. My question is for Nnaemeka. I was wondering if you could just speak really briefly to your experience with the challenges at the various marketplaces in terms of navigating the space, leaving your equipment there. And I'm sure that's very different at the different markets, and whether you see differences across the different states across Nigeria, and whether you've had any luck with local state government in that respect.
So at risk of having lost the thread a little bit because of our intermission, I know Richard was talking a bit about this, and it triggered some thoughts in my head, which is a question for Nnaemeka, I guess, which is just in general, what is the level of utilization? I think you said something like 50%, and kind of building on that, then why is it not 100%? I mean, your images are very motivating, and it looks like there's huge gains to be had from these farmers. Your price seems reasonable. I would think that that would recover that 50 cents. If they were storing food of good quality, they could still sell. So what do you hypothesize, even if you don't know, I'm just curious what you think the likely impediments are to more farmers taking it up? Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Okay, that's quite a set of questions. Let me give back to Nnaemeka for first to respond both to these questions as well as some points raised by the panelists, including Catherine's questions, but also the other issues raised. And then I'll first go to Catherine for the question raised to her, and then the other panelists may jump in after that. Nnaemeka, you have the floor back.
Thank you very much for your contributions and questions and comments. Let me respond to Catherine real quickly. How we made 100 naira to be the payment fee, you know. By 2013, we started research for ColdHubs, and we traveled all across Nigeria. And in Owerri, where we live and work, we discovered that some of the women, when they come to market to buy 2 baskets of tomato, a bag of onion, a basket of green pepper, a bag of cowpea, they don't carry it about. They actually keep it somewhere. There's something that we call grounds. They keep it in front of someone, and for every item you drop in front of that person, while you go inside the market to buy more commodities, you actually pay 50 naira. Just for someone to look at it, to watch over it for you. So when we saw that, 50 naira.
For a few hours.
Yeah, just for a few hours. And we looked at it in detail and said, how come if you are paying 50 naira, You can actually refrigerate in a cold room and pay 100 naira. You know, and for the purposes of the refrigeration, we decided to charge 100 naira. And we are the cheapest when you compare price per kilowatt, what mini grids companies are charging, and solar home systems are charging actually. Nobody is charging 100 naira anywhere in Nigeria, or 50 cents for 1 day electricity anywhere in Africa. It is the cheapest, and we are going to raise it to 150 naira next year. Actually, so we just signed a grant with Microsoft to extend our solar power use to power internet hotspots, actually. And I started my US visit in Seattle, spending a week at Microsoft, looking at the whole technologies. Amazing what they are doing there. You know, so we are going to use each ColdHub to power Wi-Fi internet up to 500 meters everywhere ColdHubs is installed. So it's an additional revenue for ColdHubs. You know. We're also looking at what will be available in areas that we go to. Each cold room generates 5.5 kilowatts of energy per hour, and we are only using 658 watts per hour. We are storing energy in batteries. 40 kilowatts worth of energy stored in batteries is massive. Is massive. So what we looked at was, if a woman, Nigeria is a country of low trust. Huh? If a rural woman or a market woman stores her tomato in a cold room and comes back tomorrow and it spoils, she will never come back again. And she will broadcast the news to every woman in the village and you will lose credibility in less than 5 hours, whatever will be the case. So we decided that these cold rooms will never go off for 1 day, whether it's raining or cloudy. So we looked at Owerri, where I come from. Owerri has an estimated 186 cloudy days in a year. It rains a lot. So we used Owerri, which is really close to the ocean, to calculate our weather, you know, the sizing of the solar systems, you know. And when we go to a site, we also look at the weather patterns, you know, over a long period of time and calculate the energy. But no cold hub generates less than 5.5 kilowatts per hour. And no cold hub has any energy storage less than 40 kilowatts worth of batteries. 50 cents per crate, again, is cheap. We signed up 320 customers. That's the figure. Actually, right now, we have more than 450 customers. You know, let me tell you, when we started in December 2016, we were doing education. Most of those women are like our mothers. They came and told us we are good children and we are doing well. And that's why they sent us to school. But they told us that, listen, that you don't store tomato in fridge, it will spoil. That's what they told us. You know. And we opened the cold room for 2 weeks for them to try and store their tomato and check it out. Day 1, day 2, up to 14 days, the tomato was still very fresh. It was amazing. None of our customers have ever left. Anybody that signs up to ColdHubs has never walked back. So we are cheap. That is why we feel we are oversubscribed. We are filling the cold rooms. Yeah, actually, since August last year, we're able to hit 100% utilization, 150 crates. But 150 crates is just to create a little bit of corridor inside the cold room so that the hub operator can walk in and pick up crates back and forth, you know. Actually, the cold room can take up to 200 crates, wall to wall, you know. So on some days, we actually store in 160 crates, you know, because you don't want to turn anybody back. In Relief Market, Owerri, one of our biggest, our first cold room, we have a lady that sells apple. Every Sunday, this lady comes in with 150 boxes of apple that she imports from South Africa. You know, she practically takes the whole space. You know, we tried to tell her that, listen, you also have to create space for other people, and she says no, that she wants to take the whole space. You know, so what we do is, instead of because when you stuff 150 apples, there is not a lot of room to move around. So we started to say, okay, let's pack it in a way where we can also put crates for more people. you know. So that's how we make sure that we are not losing customers. So we are storing more than 150. Same happens in Kano, actually. In Kano, we have about 73 customers. There's a question on utilization, different commodities. Yeah. Right now, what we are storing are exclusively fruit and vegetables that requires temperature of between 12 to 15 degrees Celsius. In the farms, the cold hubs are really toned down to about 16 degrees Celsius because we use the cold rooms in the farms for pre-cooling purposes. What I did not mention is that we actually have a cold truck that goes up to Kano and brings the food all the way down. So in the marketplaces, we set the temperature to hover between 12 and 15. Most of the food is coming in already pre-cooled, so we maintain that temperature. You know, we are building the first cold rooms for fish in the Niger Delta, 2 cold rooms. Our temperature can go down to -5 degrees Celsius, and the 2 cold rooms for fish will be open, I think, the first week of November this year. There's a question on local and state governments, which, if you know Nigeria very well, is a very difficult country. Yeah. And the government is more even difficult than the individuals, you know, so it's a very difficult place, you know. But what we've done is we've keyed into the system, and when we go to survey a market, we call that scoping mission. When we go on our scoping mission, we try as much as possible to know how much people are paying for land. You know, we are not building any store. We're actually only renting a 20 feet by 22 feet piece of land, you know, and they tell us how much it is, and we pay for that. Everywhere we've gone to, including the 6 new cold rooms we are deploying now, we've not paid more than $200 to rent land for 1 year. So what we actually do is to block out renting of land fee for 5 years per site. You know, we get a letter from local government and state government where it is addressed to cold hubs saying that this land has been allocated to cold hubs. We have a part-time surveyor that we bring in who actually marks the land and puts it, attach it to the letter. So another thing we did was also, we understand how Nigerian system works, you know, so we developed a 2-page MOU, which we change according to site. So when we go to World Bank housing estate market, which is one of the markets we are going to, we ask the market union chairman to sign an MOU. It's a simple MOU, not liable. Nobody is going to jail, nothing. You know, just to make sure that we have a relationship going on, and we've used that. But in as much as we want to go to every market and every farm to deploy cold rooms, we also look at security. We have 2 challenges. One is we are running a cash-based business. Everyday money is coming in. The second thing is security. In Kano, we lost 13,000 euros worth of batteries in 1 night. You know, so, and that was very, very difficult for us. And we didn't know what to do. You know, so we prioritize markets and farms where there is a form of security. You know, that's the only place we can unfortunately go to.
Yeah. Thank you. A lot more challenges you just added to the question. But Catherine, there was also a question raised to you.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So the more that I hear about the ColdHub, you know, the more that it gets really exciting, and the more that it gets, you know, really, you know, promising. But as I also hear from other you know, questions and other comments, that, you know, it can be one of the solutions to a whole range or menu of other, you know, solutions to make our food system, you know, efficient. And related to the question that, you know, we have to look at, you know, food, you know, systems, the food, you know, value chain, and see if, you know, for example, our focus is, you know, reducing, you know, food waste. We have, you know, to look at, you know, where there's, you know, greatest, you know, rate that it's occurring, so that we can, you know, prioritize the investments of, you know, scarce, you know, resources. Cold chain in the marketplace can be one of the solution. relocating it closer to the production, can be, one of the location if that's, where the highest, rate of, food, losses are occurring. But, that could be complemented, or that should be complemented with the other, approaches. Increasing negotiating power of the farmers, so that they can, participate and negotiate, better prices for the produce. Perhaps, training, farmers would be, an effective also to include in the menu production, areas, if that's, where it's, occurring, maybe, training of, farmers would be a solution to further and, increase the rate of, food waste, reduction in these places.
Thanks for that, Catherine. Let's check with the other panelists whether maybe you could add something or raise some further issues, particularly on the enabling factors to make this into a successful and scaled up initiative.
So
Richard, let me start with you.
if I could just jump in here for a second. Catherine, I just want to confirm that you're talking about food waste at the production level and not at the processing level. Is that what you're saying? Is it production or both? So I think that we need to look at those studies. The Global Cold Chain Alliance did a study with the World Wildlife Fund here in the United States to focus on underutilization of product. We found that at the processing level, that it was almost nearly perfect. At the processing level. And so I really would question what studies have been done and where it's being done at the processing level. I find that even Nnaemeka said yesterday, those processors, they take everything and just grind it up. So they don't really waste all too much. But at the production level, I will agree with you that in developing markets, there's such a huge loss because as you saw in the pictures, they are utilizing improper packaging. Something very simple as the plastic crates so it doesn't rub together when it gets on that really bumpy road. I would say that our research indicates that it's at the production level where the greatest impact is occurring, and then that continues through the supply chain. As for solar powered, it's a really great question because it seems like it's a great solution for an energy problem if the grid is non-existent or unreliable. The problem is that's a huge cost to put onto the developing of the infrastructure right up front. Right up front, that's the batteries that you talked about, 13,000 euros if you lose them, and then in 5 years, 5 to 7 years, you have to replace them again. So the initial investment, if we're talking access to capital, is much greater because you're trying to install the energy system that is not there, which is typically provided by the government. So while the energy might be free afterwards, it's the initial investment that I think impacts people. We have found that in the developed world, that typically solar is only used when governments come in and subsidize that, and then once the subsidies go away, the developed countries tend to back off on that investment unless they're so socially responsible that they say this is important to us and our mission and we are going to invest in that. So solar, while it seems like it's the answer, is definitely, it has its pitfalls as well. I would also say that the trust factor is huge, and I want to commend the women in Nigeria for holding you accountable for making sure that their product is being taken care of. But it's not only Nigeria. It's here in the United States, it's in China, it's in Uzbekistan. We've seen this around the world that if you damage someone's livelihood by not maintaining that proper temperature control, you lose them and you lose the ability. And they do go and they share the information all around. So that's it. I would say, Nnaemeka, that again, I go back to that infrastructure investment is 50% of the equation. The other 50% is operations. Nnaemeka talks about putting stuff wall to wall. The idea, the reason why that picture you saw with the crates was so great is because you saw space between the crates, allowing air circulation to go through the room. If it's wall to wall, that's not circulating, the product is respirating and thus actually building up more heat and causing more spoilage, even though it's in a cold room. That's one thing. The other thing is the woman with the 150 crates of apples, you need to build her own separate room. Anybody who wants to make sure that their products are ripening at home, take a bag, put an apple and the product that you want to ripen and put that apple with it, because that's the best way to ripen something. So the woman with the crates of apples, she will actually impact your other customers, and then without even knowing that it's temperature abuse, you will find that you will have higher spoilage because that ethylene is acting as an accelerator. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. We're a bit over time, but we just want to go back to the last two panelists, particularly picking up, Jean, from what Richard said. 50% is infrastructure of the problem, and the other 50% is organization operations. But I thought finance was also part of the problem. So maybe we can have another 50% of the 100% problem too.
Thanks, actually.
So particularly what you mentioned before, sort of how to get from the small scale to the larger scale investment. So particularly since you're, or if we can call 10 million and up a larger scale investment, then you'll be in the larger scale. So how we get from Nnameka's level of operation to the $10 million operation.
Right, so that's exactly where I wanted to go, was bridging the access to capital kind of question or issue. And so there's the setup fee, there's the hub itself, there's the battery, all right, so we got 13,000 euros. All right, hubs, there's crates. You mentioned the trucks, and this is where I come into the whole chain. Being able to control the whole chain or improve the whole chain makes everyone better there. The crates alone is a huge improvement over baskets, as we heard from Richard, and that has value. Farmers are willing to pay for crates if branding is good there too. Your topic about the Microsoft opportunity is where I was going to bridge to other value-added services or revenue diversification. And then especially the security and safety issue. Having a cash-based business with women entrepreneurs in particular could be an issue, and then using technology for mobile payments alone and other services, market data that your farmers either pay for or are embedded in your storage fee came to mind. The crates, pharmaceuticals as side business or designated space for some pharmaceuticals, and then you mentioned the Wi-Fi hotspot that came to mind. Other ways to offset some of these upfront costs, and along with the development community, these other benefits can be part of your upfront capital raising. And so you heard my comment earlier. I was very excited about, but you're raising 1.3 million right now. The same amount of effort, I'm sure you're learning from your visit. Many people are interested in giving, there are ways to give you 10 million in a different way, but 1.3 can be challenging. So combining the access to capital with some of this value-added services question maybe might be an easier way to address that.
Okay, thanks, Jean. Paul, you want to also go to this question, particularly maybe you could focus on what governments can do more to maybe overcome this hurdle, including the financing hurdle.
Well, I mean, the governments need to be able to set the macro framework and the macro policy, so you have that kind of stability. A big part of this is the governance issue that we've been talking about. But broadly speaking, what I'd really like to say is that this agri-food system is now becoming very dynamic with the higher incomes in developing countries, Nigeria, of course. And then we've got this opportunity with solar power coming in that lets us bring some of this refrigeration to the farm level, to the market level. It's very capital intensive still, but there seems to be a lot of promise. And then ultimately, this could have major impacts on nutrition, because if we can keep these products, the dairy products, the meat products, fresh vegetables, and so forth, fresh, and that makes it possible for a big increase in consumption of these goods, and could really make a big difference in nutrition in these developing countries.
Thanks, Paul. Do we have time for one final question, or shall we have to close?
5 minutes.
Okay, because there was one final question. That's the final question, and then I'll give it to Nnaemeka to have his final comments.
Hi, Sergio Obadia. In a former life, I used to be the director of international operations for Sun Edison, which is a big solar company, and also worked at the Port of Wilmington in Delaware, which is the largest point of entry of fresh fruit in the country. So I know exactly what you're doing. I've seen the different models established in the different parts of the world. To address your question on solar, the prices are dramatically low. Plus, the IFC will give you money for, and local banks will give you money for equipment, for solar equipment and batteries, which you can pay off in 5 years. And the solar panels will be warranted for 30 years. So from a business model perspective, your 50% operational cost would drop to maybe 10%. And the issue of renting to that woman with the apples, the challenge in leasing the different spaces is, for you, I recommend, is you're going to have to change and set different prices, because as demand increases for a certain day, if she wants to take over 100% of it, then she's going to have to pay 50 or $1 or whatever, 100 or 200 or 300. So you can play around with that, and that'll be a fine-tuning of your business model. But I think what you're doing, and I've been looking at things like this for the past 10, 15 years, and I think it's commendable, and I think it's the way to do it. I think the secret of this whole thing are the crates, and I think you should standardize that and sell them to the farmers, because that'll help the whole supply chain. Plus, it'll help you market the ColdHub brand. And if you start making 1,000 of them and you sell them, then you just then that way the people don't have to move them from their baskets into the crates. They're already at the crate. And that'll get your name out there before somebody like Dole starts selling those crates or whatever it is in Nigeria. But I commend you for your efforts. It's been very educational.
Thanks for that. It was more like almost a recommendation than a question, but maybe, Nnaemeka, you want to say something about the pricing issue that was raised and whether you can do something, play around with that more than you're doing at the moment. And with that, we're going to close the seminar.
Thank you very much. I think the pricing is fair right now, and we will not lose the apple woman by increasing prices for her. We are looking at increasing prices all across board, and so that she and others benefit. But we are actually considering putting up a second cold room in Relief Market where she sells, because the hub in Relief Market, Owerri, is oversubscribed. So part of the 40 cold rooms we are building, we are putting a second cold room side by side in Relief Market. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Nnaemeka, and thank you all for coming out. I guess I've learned a lot about the working of the ColdHubs in Nigeria, its potential. I guess we all agree this is a great initiative, but we've also heard there's lots of hurdles to be overcome. But maybe also a message to, I guess, other entrepreneurs. There's profitable ventures to invest in food and agriculture. To governments, there's lots of things to put in place to make things work, as well as to financing agencies to look for how can we bridge this gap between the small scale and the larger scale to make this impactful. And maybe that's, with that last remark, there's also a task for us researchers to seek, well, can we better identify the mechanisms that need to be falling in place in different contexts in order to make this great initiative to not just a local success in Nigeria, but a great success in Nigeria at large and in other parts of Africa and the world. So with that, let me close the seminar. Please give Nnaemeka in particular and the panelists a big hand for the contribution. And again, thanks to you all for coming out, and well, no doubt we'll hear more about this initiative.